Good morning. This is the video blog for Free Yourself from Yourself. This is Dan Weintraub. Leap morning, February 29th, early at work with my coffee. The point, again, of this video blog is to let you in on the process of my trying not to sabotage my life. And so this is just me babbling on about what's going on, what kinds of impulses, reactions, what situations are occurring in my life, and how I'm trying to be conscious of them and aware of them so that I don't always act and react to them and then get myself in trouble. And usually I end up getting myself in trouble because of certain patterns of behavior that I have that are based upon age-old maps and age-old ways of interpreting data as it comes in. And part of what I'm trying to do in my life is to give myself the opportunity to step back and observe myself, observe my feelings, my reactions, my impulses, my anxieties, my fears, whatever, and not just simply act and react. So this morning's an interesting case example. I went over to pick up my kids every morning. I live in New Hampshire. My kids live in Vermont with my ex-wife, her fiance, and my ex-wife's mom. They have a house there. So it's about 20 minutes away from where I live, just across the Connecticut River. And so I went over there this morning to pick up my kids because I take them to school pretty much every morning. And I had made sort of a tentative plan with my daughter and son, who are 10 and almost 9, to sleep over at my house, my apartment tonight. And I found out that there was an activity going on tonight over at my daughter's school, and I just don't feel like I've got my arms wrapped around everything. My apartment is messy. I haven't done laundry. I'm just not feeling like I'm on top of stuff. So I was going to sort of say, well, why don't we do the sleepover next week, or why don't we do the one night this weekend? And I got to my ex's house to pick up my kids, and my ex-mother-in-law said, so the kids are sleeping over tonight. And I was like, well, isn't tonight, Egypt night, and I'm feeling a little bit, and then it was, okay, so then I started feeling guilty that I was coming across to my kids as not wanting them to sleep over, which at this point was partially true. It was, the sleeping over becomes a whole nother issue to plan on top of the workday, right? So there was a partial truth to that. So all of a sudden guilt kicks in, and I am afraid of my ex-mother-in-law and my ex-wife. Now, what I mean by that is, and this is one of my patterns in life, I'm serially nice. I'm a serial people pleaser. It is a way that I've acted pretty much all my life. At some point I figured out, and this was not necessarily a great thing to figure out, that if you get people to like you, even if it's a very superficial like, even if it's one of those things where at least they don't not like you, if you get people to like you, then there are less things to worry about. For someone like me, who is very conscious of and very concerned about when I find out that someone doesn't like me. So anyway, what you're getting here is my process, right? So I'm not saying that here I am, and I'm not saying, oh, this is the way everybody is. This is just how I react to the world, based upon how I'm wired and what has happened for 50 years of my life. So as this is going on this morning with these feelings of guilt about my kids and, making plans to sleep over and then feeling guilty because I was feeling like maybe I didn't want that to happen tonight, and also having these fears about not wanting my ex-mother-in-law or my ex-wife to view me in any bad light, not wanting them to look at me with any consternation, I end up behaving in ways to try and make those things happen. So oftentimes what will end up happening is I'll end up being overly supportive, in quotes, because it's kind of, there's a falseness to it because it's supportive on the surface, but maybe deep down that's not what I'm actually feeling, or overly nice or non-confrontational, or not calling someone on something that I think is not such a great thing, or a way that they're behaving that maybe isn't such a great thing, because I don't want conflict and because I want them to be in my corner, but it's not really in my corner, of course, it's just the skin on the teeth of being in my corner. Anyway. this is all the process that's going on in my head and in my gut this morning. And what ends up happening oftentimes is that I will react very quickly to these impulses. And so I might say, like this morning, as my ex-wife was getting into her car and I was getting the kids ready, I said to her, "So, everything okay?" Almost as a way of saying, really what I was saying was, "So, you're not angry with me? You still like me?" Right? Interesting where that impulse comes from, and that's a whole big thing to figure out, where does that come from? But it was interesting, the self-sabotaging behavior of having this impulse that I needed to make sure that she wasn't angry with me or pissed at me for whatever reason. And so I felt this absolute impulse to step out and say, "Is everything okay?" Instead of stepping back and taking a second and saying to myself, "I wonder where this impulse to say this to my ex is coming from. I wonder where this impulse to need her, at least for me to feel that she's not angry with me, is coming from. Where's that impulse coming from? That's the difference here." And the self-sabotage, you see, I know this is a long blog entry, I apologize. The self-sabotage comes from, instead of taking time and reflecting and stepping away and observing the feelings and the thoughts, the self-sabotage comes from jumping right in and reacting. Jumping right in and trying to smooth things over when there's nothing to smooth over. Jumping right in and going to my ex, "Is everything okay?" Which of course then precipitates a whole nother series of weird interactions, because she might be like, "Yeah, what's your problem?" The self-sabotage, and this is just a teeny-weeny thing. I mean, this is just a little morning, right? But the self-sabotage comes from jumping in and responding to the impulse and oftentimes my impulses are based upon old ways of viewing the world from when I was 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 years old that still are part of who I am. So this morning was just an interesting morning because it was very illustrative of this idea of not only don't believe everything you think, which is practice number 1 of the 8 practices that I've kind of outlined, but taking time to sit quietly and observe my thoughts and my impulses and my reactions and become more and more aware, so that I'm not enmeshed in it, but that I'm aware of it, and it becomes a way for me to not react to it. And when I don't react to things, I tend not to sabotage my life. Okay. Hey, thanks for listening.